So it's always fun to see people who ask questions. I get to see the names. Unfortunately, I don't share the names with the group, but it's fun to see, former clients and current clients here answering questions, getting their questions and being able to answer them. So this first one is from one of my favorite former clients. So it's great to see you here today. What are the requirements to become eligible for FHA financing? Okay, really great question. The requirements actually change all the time, because FHA is constantly changing their requirements. Like after Surfside, there was the Surfside collapse. There were some, new questions that needed to be answered on the FHA application for anyone that was trying to get a loan. Okay, so it changes from time to time. The best thing that I can tell you to do would be to go to the FHA website. Like I'd Google FHA financing requirements, and I would say August 2023 in my search terms, and then they should lay them out for you. What are the requirements to become eligible? So if you're a condominium, you may have to fill out a questionnaire, the condominium does, to be FHA certified. And our firm helps associations with that process. There also are third-party companies that help associations with this process. The board can even do the process themselves. And basically, you just fill out the paperwork that they give you to be FHA certified. And then once the association is FHA certified, then owners can get FHA loans. So that's how it works. So the requirements to be eligible would be the board has to fill out the paperwork, or they have to hire somebody to fill out the paperwork. I've even had homeowners who are really motivated to get FHA financing. They fill out the paperwork for the board. But some of the things that FHA is looking for is how much money does the condo have in reserves? What are the assessments? How many delinquencies do you have in your community? What's the total dollar of delinquencies? Basically, they don't want to give out a loan in an association that isn't well run based on their criteria. So, that's just a quick 411 on what are the requirements. Okay, the next question is, what recourse do association members have when the association board of directors openly violates the association's governing documents? I hear this question every time I teach a class. So I guess maybe that might be something that we want to talk about in the future to help owners better understand what their rights are. So what recourse do you have? Number one, you should write a letter to the board or attend a board meeting and write a letter. I always like to have the written documentation stating your concerns. Like, I'm concerned that the board made this decision and here's why. And so I think documenting in writing is one recourse. Attending a board meeting, another recourse, expressing your concerns there. You can go to the Arizona Department of Real Estate and file a complaint against the board and have an administrative law judge hear your grievance. You can find out more information on that by just Googling Arizona and ADRE, HOA or condo dispute. It has to be a dispute regarding the Condominium Act or the Planned Communities Act and or the association's documents, like a violation of the association's documents. But, so you also have the right to sue. So you could file a lawsuit or hire a lawyer, send a letter first, and then if that doesn't work, then file a lawsuit against the association. You have the right to move, right? People get mad when I say that, so I'm hesitant to say that. But if you're really unhappy with how things are running in your association and you can't make positive change, you may want to think about leaving, selling your property and moving. You may want to run for the board yourself, put your name in that ring and run for the board. You may want to do a removal petition to remove your board from office. If you're interested in getting more information on that, you can just go to our cheat sheet. On our top 10 cheat sheet, number 6 is the Arizona legal process under Arizona law to remove a director from office. So oftentimes I'll hear frustration from owners and they'll say, I can't do anything. Well, I just gave you at least 7 pivots of what you can do, right? You can write a letter, you can go to a board meeting, you can go to the ADRE and file a complaint, you can file a lawsuit, you can move, you can run for the board yourself, you can remove the directors from office that you think aren't doing a good job. These are all different things that you have, recourse that you have to make things better in your association. Okay, the next question, number 3, how can we effectively work with board members who have no computer access or skills and who have cognitive issues? Okay, this can be an issue sometimes, right? Where you have board members who either don't have a lot of tech savvy or have no tech savvy, meaning they don't even have a computer. And they're opposed to Zoom, and they don't do email. And so let's kind of analyze that first. It's pretty unusual in my experience of working with, over 1,000 associations that we see a situation like this. But sometimes it does happen, and it takes more work for the management company and more work for the board member that isn't computer savvy, and more work for the entire board that has a board member that's not computer savvy to keep that person informed. It's not ideal, but there's no requirement under Arizona law that says that they have to have a computer or that they, have to understand most recent technology so that they can, participate by the most recent technology. That's not a requirement. It's helpful, but it's not a requirement. So sometimes I get the question, do we have to buy them a computer? Maybe it's a money thing. I would be opposed to doing that. I don't think that we would go to that level to, allow them to be informed. I mean, I have seen some associations do that, but obviously it's the property of the association. It comes back to the association after that board member is no longer on the board. It should only be used for board business type of things. But I really kind of like to shy away from that. I don't like that. And I think it causes future problems and questions that are valid questions, like why are we buying a computer for somebody on the board? It doesn't really make sense. Okay, so that analysis is you just got to, elbow grease and lots of extra work to keep that person up to speed if they don't have technology. What about somebody who has cognitive issues? I really haven't seen that often, to be perfectly honest with you. And it's surprising, really, it is kind of surprising because the demographics of board members typically are that, a majority of them are retired. And, if you just look at the percentages of people that may have dementia or cognitive issues, it's kind of surprising that we don't see more of it. But if you feel that somebody has cognitive issues, that's a sensitive subject because it's not like you can go up to them and say, I think you have cognitive issues, or, because if you know anything about the disease, dementia and Alzheimer's, that is not going to be well received. And so I think the best advice I can give you on that is if this person is in a position like as treasurer or president of the association, that, you raise the issue, don't talk about them personally, but raise the issue that maybe they aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. Like maybe they're missing meetings or they're not carefully reviewing the financials. Maybe we need to ask to have a second person be an assistant treasurer. Maybe you volunteer to help. It's sticky for sure. And, you may want to run for a position on the board to unseat that person if you feel that they are not cognitively able to be a good board member. Okay, question number 4. Our HOA board consists of snowbirds who have monthly Zoom meetings. What is the best way to handle bills that come in and need to be paid before our next meeting? The majority wants to just do an email approval so the manager can pay them and then formally adopt at the next meeting. How do you recommend we handle this? I recommend that you, as a board, vote to give your manager authority to pay whatever the routine bills are and other bills up to a certain amount in between board meetings. And then the manager can just give you a report by either sending an email saying, okay, just FYI only, here are the bills that were paid. If anybody has questions, raise the issue at the next board meeting or whatever. I think that's probably the best way to do it versus going through and approving each one individually by email after the board meeting is over. That kind of doesn't make sense to me. I think most association bills, I served as my treasurer for 3 years of my association. Most association bills are routine, and most association bills have been voted on by the association or approved by the association to pay. So I would have the board do a blanket approval of routine bills, and anything that's been approved at the board meeting that can go ahead and be paid, and the manager just keeps you apprised of what's going on. Okay, next question, number 5. CC&Rs state that funds must be spent for the benefit of the homeowners. From your experience, does this infer 50% or more of the members must benefit from the improvement? I really don't infer that. I think it just needs to be, because let's face it, like, let's say I love tennis and I love pickleball. So, 50% of the community doesn't use the tennis and pickleball amenities. Does that mean that we don't spend money keeping the amenity up? No. So, I mean, I think you need to look at how funds are spent so that we're, being economical and we're maintaining the property that we have. But I don't think that you can just make a blanket rule that says 50% or more of the members don't benefit from it, we're not doing it anymore. I don't think that's a good analysis. Okay, question number 6. I have requested to meet with the board privately, and the community manager has refused to set up a meeting. What are my options? Ooh, I love this question because it's kind of like dripping with, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but I'm sure there's a story. Okay, so anyways, I don't know what the situation is. If you're asking to meet with the board privately because you want to complain about the manager, is that why the manager is blocking the meeting? I don't know. Or you're wanting to meet with the board and maybe, I'm sorry, this might hurt, the board doesn't want to meet with you. I don't know what the situation is, but if you want to meet with them privately and you're not quite sure why they aren't meeting with you, go to a board meeting and during the homeowner forum, ask them, can I meet with you privately? And, honestly, most boards don't meet privately with an owner unless there's like litigation pending or there's a real serious problem. So don't have your feelings get hurt if that doesn't happen, because they can't meet with everybody in the community, right? But, just see what they say. I think that's the best way to approach it. Go to a board meeting during the homeowner forum, state what I want to meet with the board privately, explain why, even if it means that you have to say, I want to talk with you about the performance of the manager or whatever, and then see what they say. Your options are they don't have to meet with you privately. So you don't have any options. You can't force them to meet with you privately. Okay, next question, number 7. How common is it for the management company to have the authority to initiate legal action, such as a demand letter, without informing the board of directors? It really just depends on how the management company operates, and what the management contract says. I mean, again, these are all things that should be communicated in the management contract or in expectations. Maybe the board has delegated this to the management company. Or maybe the management company just started doing it out of the blue, and maybe the board's worrying like, hey, are they like trying to make money on this? Or why are we sending out so many letters? So open the lines of communication. How common is it? It's pretty common, frankly, that the management company, sends a demand letter or, records a lien. That's something that we see often. But a management company filing a lawsuit, we don't see that. That usually goes to the attorney. Okay, next question, number 8. From a board member. We remodeled our pool and had a $250,000 budget with a 6-month duration to finish. 2.5 years later, the pool remodel was completed. Within a week of opening, we had our first water leak, just one of many. Come to find out, the old water pipes were not all replaced. Our property manager has not taken any responsibility. His answer is it's always someone else's fault. What avenue do we have? Well, first things first, okay, the management company or the manager, it's not their fault, right? Let's just get that out straight up, okay? It's the contractor's fault. And so the property manager should be saying to the board, we need to contact the register of contractors. We need to look at the contract with the vendor to make what was the warranty. I mean, another really good point that I forgot from my contract discussion earlier was warranty, right? Is there a warranty for work, depending on what type of contract it is? And this is not acceptable to have a leak like this and many leaks right after the project took too long already to do. And so I would get legal counsel involved. I would look at the contract. I think about going to the register of contractors if you're still within the time period that they can become involved and help you. Just the manager taking responsibility, they don't have any responsibility. What the management company should be doing is action, getting this to the decision makers, the board, to make a decision to send it to the attorney to help you. This is a very large amount of money. It's $250,000. I think this is something that you should get your attorney involved in to get to work on it to get this fixed. Next question, number 9. Our HOA feels our current CC&Rs are in good shape except for one thing. They do not include reimbursement assessment. Can this be introduced in a different governing document or possibly a resolution? I love teaching these classes because I don't know everything, right? I don't know what a reimbursement assessment is, frankly. Honestly, I truly don't know what that is. So I guess a thought that I would have is anytime you're trying to add an assessment obligation to the obligations that the owners have, it cannot be done by resolution. Like a good example, capital contribution fee, that has to be part of the CC&Rs. Special assessments has to be part of the CC&Rs. If you're any assessment that you're trying to charge your owners, it has to be listed as something that they have to pay under the CC&Rs. And so what I would, suggest that you do is, talk to your attorney about this. This can't be a resolution. I'm not exactly sure what reimbursement assessment is. Maybe you're thinking like special assessment or something, or reimburse after you do the project. I don't know, but it's got to be in the CC&Rs, and you need to talk to your attorney about the best way to do that. Okay, question 10. By law, must third-party property managers have a CAI designation? If not, what other organizations award qualifying certificates? So good question. This is on, managers. Do they have to have a designation in Arizona, or do they have to be licensed through the state, or do they have to have special educational training through the state? Or is that a state law that requires that? No, and no. CAI, just so everybody's on the same page here, Community Associations Institute. It is a national think tank which provides free information to homeowners, board members, property managers. They have wonderful classes and accrediting for managers and for homeowners. And so there are different levels of education that the managers can go through, and the designations that they get, like PCAM, and all the different designations that they can get are wonderful, but they're not required. And so I even have a designation through CAI. I'm in the College of Community Association Lawyers, which was hard to get into. So I'm very proud of it. And so what I would, just let you know, there are no really other organizations that have qualifying certificates other than there's an organization, wonderful organization in Arizona called the Arizona Association of Community Managers. They also have an education program where you can get certificates and designations. So CAI and AACM are great resources, and they do have the designations, but they're not required under Arizona law. So it's something to look at. Do they have it? That might be, a gold star next to their name, because that means that they, have taken the time and effort to get educated on our industry, but it's not required. Okay, next question is from a current client. Can we require reimbursement of costs and B, enforce a fine on an owner who contacts vendors directly and gives direction without authorization, and usually without the knowledge of the board and the management company? This owner, who happens to be a prior board member, has repeatedly been warned that he must reimburse the association for costs incurred this way. Okay, so you've got a homeowner, former board member, which is always a challenging little category. Somebody who's served on the board and they're no longer on the board and they're upset about how the current board is running. Not a good combination. So this person is contacting your vendors and giving them direction. Okay, number one, tell the vendor, you don't talk to anybody other than the manager and current board members. And if you're doing work or taking direction from somebody that is not in one of those two categories, you are violating the contract. So get that clear with the contractor right away. Can you fine this owner or ask for reimbursement of costs? Well, A, I probably wouldn't pay those costs to the contractor, number one, because it wasn't authorized. And two, the only way we can find an owner for, under the law in Arizona is if they have violated the CC&Rs, the bylaws, or the rules of the association. And so I don't know if you have a rule that says you can't do this with a contractor, you can't give direction or interfere with relationships. I suppose it could be considered creating a nuisance, but it's kind of a stretch to say that. So I would kind of shy away from, trying to fine them for this. What I would do is I would send them a letter and tell them to cease and desist from doing that. Maybe even have your attorney send that letter. But I think the fine might be a stretch. Okay, question number 12. And let's see, how many more do we have to go? We have 24, so we're at the halfway point. Is it best to notify the current management company that the community is shopping for a replacement, or just to verify that we have the best pricing for the services rendered? Does the board initiate the open board meeting, since the community manager usually sets up meetings when hiring a new management company? Okay, this is such a good question. And I'm sorry, I should have talked about this more in my presentation, but that's why we have these questions. We do clean up in the questions sometimes. So is it best to notify the management company that you have right now that you're going to fire them or that you're looking? I don't know the answer to that question, but what I can tell you is I think that being open and honest is always the best policy in this situation, because like I said earlier in the presentation, this is a small industry and management companies talk. And so if they find out about it from another management company, they're going to be hurt and upset, and they may fire you first. And so kind of a sneaky way, I guess, to inform them, but also keep them dangling the carrot that, hey, we're not necessarily going to can you, but we're just testing the waters, is to just let them know that you're going to put it out to bid, just to make sure that the price that you're paying them is consistent with what the market dictates. And if they're confident in their services and their pricing, they should be okay with that. But the reality is most of them will get it, and they'll, maybe they won't even bid. I don't know. Sometimes they do bid, and sometimes they do get rehired, but most times they don't. So is it best to notify them? I think it probably is, because you can't sneak around it. Oh, the cat always gets out of the bag, and then it's uncomfortable. So just be honest. Let them know what you're doing. If there's no way you're going to hire them, then, tell them we've appreciated the time that you worked with us, but we are going in a different direction. We want to be honest with you and upfront. And this is what we're planning to do, and you may even be giving them their termination letter at that point. I don't know. Does the board have to initiate it if you're doing it on the sly and not telling the management company about it? Yes, you still have to comply with the open meeting law. So, you've got to post a notice 48 hours in advance of the regular board meeting. Okay, question 13. How do you know if you're being overcharged by a management company? Good question. I guess, talk to your lawyer, hope your lawyer is independent and not totally hooked in with the management company. I hope they will give you an honest answer. If you contact me, I will tell you straight up exactly what I think, because I'm not associated with any one management company. I'm independent, and my client is always the association. So, how do you know if you're being overcharged? I guess having a third party look at the bills and, saying, that doesn't seem right. Like, I think kind of a little rule of thumb would be, if you're paying more on Exhibit A charges than your monthly rate that you're paying them for the management services, that's probably a red flag. You should probably be thinking like, that doesn't sound right. And you may want to reach out to me or your trusted legal advisor to get their opinion. Another way to know if you're being overcharged is to take a look at the expenses over a year and then put it out to bid. See what the bids come in at in terms of how much the other management companies think it's going to cost to manage your association. Really good question for the interview process is, how much do you anticipate our Exhibit A charges to be for our association each month? And then see what they say. And then see how they respond to this response when we're negotiating the contract. okay, you said in the interview that you thought that the Exhibit A charges were going to be $1,000 a month. Can we write into the contract that there's a cap of $1,500 a month? You can never exceed that. See what they say. Be interesting to see the answer. Okay, next question, number 14. What do you suggest being in the weekly updates for board members? Oh, and this is from a manager. So great. I love that you are asking this question. So basically, what I would suggest being in the weekly update, and if you do this, just so you know, you are a superstar, because I know our manager does this just because we set this up for her to do it. And I love it because it just gives us an update of what happened that week. So it doesn't have to be long. It's not a management packet every week. Okay. It's, an email saying, dear board of directors, this week I focused on the following. I got bids for, the replastering of the pool, and I'll have those for you at our board meeting. I dealt with an angry homeowner who was upset about the broken sprinkler at her house, and I got the sprinkler fixed too. I looked at the delinquencies, and, we have 3 owners that haven't paid assessments for 6 months. And so, I told, pursuant to our management company, we can lien those properties. We went ahead and told the collection department to lien them. Just whatever, it doesn't have to be long. Our managers is like maybe 5 sentences each week. If there's a real serious problem, like there was a fire or, blankety blank, this is how I handled it. Just giving an update on what happened and what you're working on. And if you know that you've got a board member that's fixated on something like the flowers at the entrance to the community, and, the board member is saying, why don't we have the flowers in? Why don't we have the flowers in? And you've been contacting the landscaper to say, why don't you have the flowers in? Say, I contacted the landscaper on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and they told me they were going to come on Thursday. They didn't come on Thursday. So I contacted them Thursday afternoon. Where are you? And now they're coming on Monday, and I will continue to follow up with them to make sure they get here. That's going to pacify your upset board members. So be strategic in how you handle your, weekly update to board. Make sure you're addressing the things that are important to them. Okay, next question is, how essential are committees to organize work? We have a great cheat sheet on this topic, association committee basics. It just really depends. Some associations have a lot of committees that really help the board with a lot of different things. Other associations really don't have any committee other than like the architectural review committee. And so it just depends. If your board needs help, it's really essential to have a committee out there, doing the legwork and doing research to report back to the board to make a decision. So are they essential? They can be if your association needs extra help. Okay, next question, number 16. What is the minimum that AA grade community manager, AAA grade, like that community manager, should be on site to look for community issues such as maintenance needs, homeowner compliance with CC&Rs? Tough question to ask because I have a lot of associations of different sizes. So the first thing you got to look at is, what does the management contract say? Does the management contract say that they need to be there once a week? Then they should be there once a week. My personal feeling, not even factoring in the management contract, is if somebody is a AAA manager, 5-star manager, they should be on the property at least once a week, and they should be driving around, walking around, kicking the tires, looking at things, talking to the landscaper while they're there, engaged on the property, and engaged would be the 2 things. Aware of the issues on the property, engaged, and also willing to take feedback, because I think all of us know when we're serving on the board, my husband and I walk our dog a lot at night, and I'm walking the dog and I'm like looking at problems in the community, right? He's a homeowner. He's not looking at that. He's actually telling me to stop, like stop taking pictures. I want to enjoy the walk. And so when you're a board member, you see things that maybe other homeowners don't see. And so if the property manager gets a picture from a board member saying, hey, I saw this, I think this needs to be addressed, I think that that's important for them to address and be receptive to that. Say, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I'll get that taken care of, and then do it. Okay, question 17. Does the board have the right to hire a community manager without any open board meetings? As an interested homeowner, I have never seen anything until they are hired, both from outside the community as well as promoted from another position, as in this case, assistant community manager. It really, hiring and firing of vendors needs to take place in an open board meeting. Just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it hasn't happened in an open board meeting. If they did it in a closed session, it wasn't perfectly legally proper, but they probably cleaned it up by announcing it. I just want to make it clear from this presentation, okay, do it in the open meeting, because then the minutes reflect it and it's official and it doesn't fall under one of the executive session topics. Just hiring and firing a vendor is not a reason to go into executive session unless your legal counsel is there and you're talking about the legal side of that. Okay, next question. Question 18, do you recommend that a potential management company for hiring be part of the Arizona Association of Community Managers? I'm very familiar with AACM. I actually used to be a vendor member of AACM, and they're a great organization. They do a lot of great education for managers. So I recommend, of course, I recommend Community Associations Institute. The local chapter has great education programs. I recommend Arizona Association of Community Managers has great educational programs. I used to teach some of them myself. So, I don't get fixated on, I think they're better or they're better. I don't do that. I just say any education that managers can get in our industry to make them better, including these classes, are necessary and a great idea. Okay, next question, number 19. Why are the management companies not licensed? Yes, that's a very good question. I don't know why. What I can tell you is that it has not been a priority by the Arizona State Legislature. I think there are some lobbyists that are hired by management companies that, are hired to fight this. I don't think it would be that big of a deal if they were licensed. Basically they just have to pay a fee. There probably would have to be mandatory education, and there would be oversight by the state. It's expensive to have the state run a program like that. So, and I don't know if the licensing fees would cover the costs. So why are they not licensed? Because I think it's been blocked by lobbyists previously, and I think that it's expensive for the state to do. And we typically get this question a lot when we start to see a lot of problems with management companies or embezzlement by management companies. This question kind of comes to the forefront, and I think it will happen in Arizona someday. It's not a legislative priority right now for the Arizona legislature. Okay, question 20. You said all discussion about hiring a new management company and firing a management company needs to be done in an open session. How can this discussion and decision be done when the current community manager attends the open meetings? It feels rude to talk about replacing the community manager in front of them at an open meeting. I mean, I agree. That's why you need to have the talk with them at the beginning and just say, we are going in this direction, and we certainly don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. You're welcome to stay for this part of the meeting, or we'll put it at the end of the meeting, and you're welcome to leave a little early so that you don't have to listen in on this conversation. Okay, question number 21. How do you broach the subject of switching management companies with the other board members in request to a quorum? Also, our board meets monthly, but with the management company present. Okay, so if you want to switch management companies and you don't want to do it in an open meeting, and maybe this is like the first time you're thinking of it, like, this isn't going well, and I want to talk about it with the rest of the board. What you could do as a board member is reach out to board members individually and express your concerns. So don't send a blast email to all board members. Send an email to one board member, or have a meeting with one board member, or have a meeting with less than a quorum and talk about your concerns. And that's kind of like the initial part. And then if you start to see that, okay, this snowball is getting bigger, and now everybody thinks, yeah, I think this might be time to switch to management company. Then what you may want to do is have a board member reach out to the attorney, talk about, okay, if we were going to do this, what would this look like? And what does the termination provision mean in the contract? And then after you kind of get over those initial discussions, and the attorney can be smart and help you and not put in the bill, hey, telephone conference with client regarding termination of management company, right? You could just say telephone conference with client regarding association questions, so we're not telegraphing to the management company when they get my bill that, hey, you're about to be fired. And so there's a way to do it with less than a quorum, talk about it. And then once you feel that you have enough people to actually move this to the open meeting, then just ask them to put it on the agenda and have the talk with the manager and let them know what's going on. Or if you don't want to have the talk and you want to do it on the slide, then you have the board notice the meeting and you run the risk of having the manager find out about it and being upset. Okay, question number 21. How do you broach the subject of switching management companies with the other board members in request? Oops, I think I already did that one, right? Next one. Is there a recommended frequency for compliance tours? Twice a month, too frequent? So we're getting this question a couple times now. So it's a good question. So whatever your management company contract says, that's what they're required to do. Is recommended frequency twice a month? I mean, I don't know. How much of a problem do you have in your community? I think that's kind of a lot, frankly. I think once a month is probably enough. Number 22, is there a recommended, number 23. How can a board remove a fellow board member who constantly creates issues at the meetings and on social media? This is a problem. I'm starting to get a lot of questions about angry board members who are going on social media and saying not so positive things about the board and the community. So we're starting to talk about this with boards and how improper that is and how the code of conduct doesn't allow that and how it's potentially a breach of fiduciary responsibilities to the corporation. So how can a board remove a fellow board member who constantly creates issues at the meetings and on social media? Okay, first, I would suggest that you talk with the board member, have the president, hopefully it's not the president, have a board member talk to the other board member about the issues. Often when you have that meeting, the board member that is being talked to about their behavior doesn't see their behavior as a problem. And that's always frustrating. So then usually it goes to the attorney. And the attorney will send a letter to the board member saying cease and desist from doing whatever they're doing. How to remove them? There's a process under state law. Like I said, you can go to our cheat sheet, top 10 things you need to know about Arizona Community Association law. Number 6 is how to remove a director from office. That shows you how to do that. I'm not going to lie to you, removal meetings are always, very controversial and expensive and tear the community apart. So I don't know if you want to go that route. What you might want to do is wait it out, try to get them to behave and wait it out and have somebody run against them in the future, the next opportunity when their seat's up for re-election. You may want to strip them of their title as an officer. Are they, an officer of the community, president, vice president, treasurer, secretary? Take away their title. They're still a director at large, but they no longer have that title. And typically the bylaws will allow them to do that. Okay, question number 24. Looks like we have about 3 more questions. Our board has been very successful in accumulating a significant amount of money in our reserve account without any significant capital improvement projects in the near future. Can an HOA invest in a long-term investment tool, like a CD, 2-year, 3-year, or 5-year term, despite being a nonprofit corporation? Yes, I think you can. My association where I live, we have almost all of our reserve funds in CDs. What you want to do though is you want to have enough liquid cash that if something significant came up, you want to have, that available to handle whatever the problem is. You kind of have to, your community better than I do. We also have a great cheat sheet on reserve funds, which I would encourage you to take a look at. But good for you that you have a great reserve. Now you have to be smart about how you invest it so that you have liquid capital available in case you need it. Okay, question 25. Our bylaws state that a board meeting requires 10 days notice. The president scheduled a meeting with 17 hours notice to make a motion to remove the VP from their officer role. 2 boards told the president this meeting is in violation of the bylaws and can't meet. The other 3 board members approved and the vice president is removed. Is it valid? Okay, so board meetings are going to require, 48 hours notice unless it's an emergency. So, I mean, is it valid? I don't know. Is it worth it to go fight about it? Because basically what they're going to do is renotice the meeting, give 48 hours notice, same boat, VP's out. So is it worth it? I don't know. You have to decide that. 17 hours is not enough because it doesn't sound like it was an emergency based upon what you've told me, but they're just going to renotice it and do the 48 hours and it's going to be the same result. So maybe place your efforts somewhere else that is going to actually make a difference. Okay, last question. Can the board make a decision not to consider any other management companies and just give a contract for 5 years to the current management company without getting input from the community? Does the board have the right to do that? Yes, if it's not in your CC&Rs that they can't, enter into a contract for, more than a certain period of years. So if the bylaws or CC&Rs don't have a provision that says, no long-term contracts, the board can do it. Is it a good idea? No, that is not a good idea because you want to be able to terminate, the contract if you're not happy with the services. And if you're giving the management company a 5-year contract, what benefit is that to you? Maybe there's a benefit in the pricing. I don't know. I'd have to listen to the facts and I'd have to see how long you've had the management company and find out from the board why they did this. It's uncustomary and it's not something I would suggest, but I always like to listen to all facts so that I can make a good decision in my response. So that would be my thoughts on that. Okay. Conclusion for today. I just want to give a shout out to the number of viewers from Sedona and Tucson who joined us here today, in addition to the Valley of the Sun. So thank you so much for being here today. It's great to have new demographics joining us here today for these classes, and we appreciate you being here, as well as our old faithfuls from the Valley of the Sun. Thank you also for being here too. Okay, a few things to mention regarding our class today. First, we had 122 live viewers on Zoom today, and many other viewers who also joined us on Facebook Live. So thank you so much for being here today and caring about your communities, wanting to make them better. Some upcoming educational opportunities that are free that I want to make sure you're aware of. First things first, Friday, September 1st, 9:00 a.m. is our firm's virtual First Friday free call-in. And the First Friday free call-in is a time where I answer one HOA or condo question live from each participant. You can find the details about this on our website at mulcahylawfirm.com. We take questions submitted through our website through the morning of September 1st at 8:45 a.m. So I hope you'll join us, not only to have your question answered, but also to listen to other people's questions and my answers to those questions to help you run your association. Our next virtual HOA Condo Academy is on Tuesday, September 19th. And this is class number 9 of our 2023 virtual HOA Academy. And the topic for this class is Money Matters, creating a budget, which we're all working on, probably starting soon. So it's a very timely class, our budget for 2024. How do we create a budget? What goes into making a budget? What are the factors that we consider? How do we read financials so that we make sure that our association is in good financial shape? And then last but not least, preventing fraud and embezzlement, and the 411 on reserve funds and how they operate, how safe for them, how you know how much money to put in the reserve, etc. Last but not least, for those of you who are still here with us today, it's really important that we receive feedback on how we're doing in these classes. And one of the ways that you can give me feedback is to consider leaving our firm a Google review. It's very easy to do this. We are going to give you a link right now. And if you wouldn't mind, I would sincerely appreciate it if you would take the time to fill out a Google review and let us know how we're doing with the classes. We pass this information along to the different neighborhood services departments so that they understand the feedback and the need for these classes, and anything that you want to let us know about the classes. I pass that on to them, and then that helps me convince them to continue teaching these classes going forward in 2024. So it helps me out if you do take the time to give us a Google review. So I really appreciate that. And we'll be sharing the Google link with you now on Zoom and on Facebook Live. So that's it for today. Thanks so much to everybody for being here with us. Great questions. I could tell that everybody was really listening and engaged and through your questions. So we covered a lot of material today. I hope everybody has a great rest of the month, and I look forward to seeing you during our free educational opportunities in September. Take care, everybody.